Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Today, I have my sister Esty here, Esty Geisinsky, our baby sister. She's the youngest girl of us all. And she has been a great support to me, I will say, from the beginning of my journey. When I became a Nurtured Heart Approach trainer, I was looking for people that I could practice teaching, that I could practice my workshops on. And she was there. And then I needed rent a crowd sometimes because I'd put out a workshop and I'd have like one person sign up, and I'm like, I need people. She was there. So Esty is very well informed in Nurtured Heart, besides the fact that, as you will hear momentarily, she uses Nurtured Heart in her life whenever she can, definitely with my kids, which I appreciate very much. She's definitely their favorite aunt. So I thought it would be fun to hear from you, Esty, as a non-Nurtured Heart Approach trainer and as a non-mom yet, to hear about like what it is about Nurtured Heart that you like and that you relate to and that kind of resonates with you. And also, I'm curious to hear about how you have found ways to use this just in your life without, like, not in your own family.
Um, I think like the overall, since I've never officially, I've listened to your trainings when you were first starting off and all that, but I never officially like learned it in a way that I was like, how can I implement this in my life? Because I wasn't coming from being a mom or dealing with kids on a daily basis. Um, I think like the overall impact, seeing it in our family, first of all, like the transformation in our family and my siblings having this gift in their lives is definitely like amazing to see. And I think one thing that stands out, first of all, that I think I learned through Nurtured Heart Approach is, I guess, like to not be afraid of kids, which is what I was going to say is kind of how it, like part of how I use it in my life is that seeing, like knowing how you interact with your kids or other siblings interact with their kids, using it even just in that way, it helps me be able to show up as an adult in the kids' lives because there's no fear. It's just like kids are humans. We're all, I guess that shift um, definitely helped me just interacting with the kids that I do have in my life or have ever needed to like be in charge of or watch. Um, the other thing specifically about Nurture Heart Approach that always stood out to me.
Tap you on that.
Sure.
I want to hear more about that, and we may have to do another recording to discuss other things. I want to hear more about that. Like, if you could walk us through, like, kind of the before and after. What does that fear look like? Because I think that's something that is very relatable. Oh my gosh! And it doesn't matter if you're a mother, a teacher, or just a random person. Or like, I know you give haircuts, and maybe you'll talk about that. I don't know, but you give haircuts to kids a lot. Um, is going to be very valuable to people listening. So, what is that? What's the shift from what to what, and why?
um, yeah, sure. So, um, I definitely think that I'm not a mom. I've never experienced this with my own kids, but maybe even more so when it's not your own kids. I don't know. I can't compare it, but um, the feeling like you have to do the right thing. When I'm watching someone else's kids and it's like they're trusting me with these kids. So that's why I think maybe it's more for me if it's not my kids, but maybe it's more if it is your kids. I don't know. Um, and the like uncertainty of like kids are all kids are different, all kids are unpredictable, and when you're taking responsibility for that, then when things aren't going, like you don't feel like you have perfect control over the situation or kids are acting out or kids are, you know I definitely used to feel fear in that, like how do I quickly get this back under control, or if I was, even maybe in your house or one of my siblings houses and playing with the kids and the kid acting out and the fear of like, oh no, what if they walk in right now and watch me, with this kid, and they'll be like, she doesn't know what she's doing, she can't, control the kids or whatever. So I guess the fear there is definitely like in trying to like thinking that maintaining control at all times is the right way, is what you need to do. Um, and I actually remember, like, back in the beginning of learning about nurture heart approach, that I had this babysitting job, and I remember that was the first experience where I ever reached out to you and was like, can you help me with these kids that I was watching? And I definitely had a lot of fear there, because this was a job I wanted the mother to feel like I was doing a good job with her kids. And one of the kids that I was watching, he enjoyed doing the opposite of what he was supposed to be doing, and like being in public with someone else's kid, and they're refusing to get in the stroller, refusing to walk. There's a lot of like, everyone's watching me and I'm failing at this. And that was, I think, the first time I ever got to experience, like, with an actual child in an actual situation where I could change that over. And what the change is like, first of all, it doesn't have to be about you. It doesn't have to be about like you doing the perfect thing right now in this moment. For me, that'll be like taking a breath and being like, what's actually going on here? And I like definitely value seeing, like, kids are people. I think kids are beautiful. And to be able to, in every situation, be like, what's going on in their head, what's really like the bigger picture here, what am I actually, where can I actually be helpful, instead of what do I feel like I need to do quickly to make it look like I got this under control. um it's definitely helped me be able to then just show up with a kid, and it also helps de-escalate a situation when I don't freak out when a kid is having a hard time, because I stay calm, and then like, it doesn't have to get bigger than it already is. um So, yeah, I definitely think it's helped me just be able to be like, yeah, sure, I love these kids. I can hang out with them anytime, even if it's dysfunctional or feels dysfunctional.
So to like reframe or recap, the permission to not have to have it under control allowed you to move from a place of fear and almost like desperate control, like that frenzied, anxious, like reactivity, to a place of being able to be in, sounds like, empathy and respect and connection with the beautiful beings that the kids actually are.
Yeah, which is a gift to me also.
Tell me more about that.
I just like what I was saying about how I think kids are so incredible and so beautiful, and like me not being like too consumed with being the adult, and instead just showing up and having connection. Like, I love having a connection with these kids. Like, they're beautiful people. I love knowing them. And definitely, like, being able to just connect as humans is what allows me to feel connected.
So how else do you see this, or do you see this, in the way you're able to connect also with your clients, or you're saying other kids besides for family? Like, how does this play out? Like, walk us through that.
um yeah, so, well, you mentioned that I give haircuts. So that is one way that I pretty regularly interact with sometimes very young children. Sometimes it's their first time ever getting a haircut, which, I mean, I don't remember my first time getting a haircut, but it's pretty like normal thing. I think it's what's the word? Like, you're allowed to be afraid of that. Like, it's when you're a little kid, and this is like a first experience for you. Um, and a lot of times kids just, they don't want this. They're being dragged in by the parent for their haircut. So there are certain situations where I'll be like super hyper focused on like nurtured heart approach, but what should I do in this situation? But other times, even if I'm not, like using recognitions, or it's just what I was talking about, not being afraid, that like if a kid comes in with their parent and is afraid to get the haircut, I think that in the past, before learning all of this, I probably would have been like, I'm going to fail at this. I'm not going to be able to get this kid to get a haircut. It's going to not work out. It's going to, how can I fix the situation?
The hair's not going to be even.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, sometimes the hair isn't even when this happens, but we just do our best. um, or instead, it's just understanding. Like, I don't know this kid. Usually, I don't know them at all, and they walk in and they're afraid, and just that's okay. Realizing that, I've told many kids, I can see that you're scared. A lot of people when they come in here for their haircuts are scared, and sometimes they cry, and I say, it's okay. A lot of people cry when they're scared. You're crying because you're scared and you're still so brave. You're sitting in this chair and letting me give you a haircut. Which I think is also, it's an interesting thing that people sometimes are afraid to maybe recognize, that like they're sitting in the chair, they're getting the haircut because it was a non-negotiable that the parent needed them to get a haircut. But like, they're still sitting there. They're not like, I'm not forcibly tying them down to their chair. I'm not forcing them, so just because they're afraid, just because they're crying, like, they're human. That's fine. And usually I see a shift when I even just say that, like, you're afraid. A lot of people are afraid. They kind of like melt, because it's just all they needed is like, it's to just for it to be okay. And that
Yeah.
definitely, like, that helps me a lot. Even, it's on the one hand, I just want to be a human to these people, to these kids, to give them a good experience with a haircut. It doesn't have to be traumatizing, but also in the long run, it helps me, because I do actually get to give haircuts better through doing this.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly what you were saying before, that when a kid is when you're focused on control and fear and how's this going to work and am I going to be able to get this kid to listen, then it's just every cry they make and every move they make is evidence of that, versus where you're okay with it and seeing them as human and seeing them as beautiful, and it makes sense that they're scared. What I heard you just describe is this ability to then notice that, hey, even though they're scared, they're sitting here and they are
Mhm.
getting their haircut, and then that, like you said, calms them down. That's so beautiful and powerful.
So the second thing that always struck me from Nurtured Heart Approach, that just kind of clicked in my head from listening to your courses and thinking about it, um, was the difference between recognition and praise. Um, Praise being, like, words that are praising like an external thing about a person, something that they've accomplished or something that they've done, versus recognition being recognizing an actual goodness in the person. Um, that's something that kind of struck me, because I was a person who received plenty of praise in my life, and it kind of felt empty. Um, and what it ended up doing was, it did kind of push me to run after that praise, but it also at the same time wasn't really giving me what I wanted. So it was like, from, I guess, a lack of believing in myself, I would try to keep outputting the things that people were praising me for, but then I just would keep going on that cycle, because I didn't really feel seen by that. I didn't really feel like it wasn't really helping what was going on inside me. So hearing this nurture heart approach of, like, this is a way that we can really see kids. Like, I heard that and I was like, I was the kid who wanted that, who would have really, like, appreciated that and gained from it.
Could you give an example of what might be praise versus recognition? Like maybe something you did or something you were praised for that didn't feel, it sounds like, seeing to you?
Yeah. So I think for me, it wasn't necessarily about the actual words being used. It was more that it started from me doing a lot of things, working very hard to do everything so-called perfectly, being good at everything, and that gave me a lot of praise. But what it would end up doing was, it made me chase like it was the only thing that I was really getting was praise for the perfection, so-called perfection that I was accomplishing, and all the things that I was producing and all the things I was being good at. So it basically, I internalized this message that in order to get any sort of connection or any sort of feeling valued in the world was by continuing this level of perfection or producing or just like being good at everything I ever tried to do. um and that was because I didn't really feel seen for who I was. So I didn't want to show up as who I was. I wanted to continue to never miss a step. So I guess that's how it kind of accomplished the opposite of what me really being seen would have accomplished.
So it's not so much that they were complimenting the things you did. That's not bad or wrong. It's just that since that was the only recognition you got versus getting seen for, like, nurtured heart, we talk about our intention is to build that inner wealth. Our intention is to have the person recognize their greatness and see themselves as a person who is great. It's not about what they do, even though we do recognize what they do as well. But the sense is to have them get this understanding of how much they offer to the world just by being them, and in every opportunity possible that that was missing, because it was just about what you were doing. It was only when you performed at a certain level of perfection that then you were seen, which made it feel like you aren't what's important. It's your perfection that's what's important. And if you want to be valued in the world, then it needs to be it needs to be about you performing at that level of perfection, which made you feel less like being yourself and more like forcing yourself to be even more perfect, which sounds stressful and
Yes.
like a lot of pressure for a person to feel. How did that work for you to live your life under that pressure and stress?
I mean, I guess the answer is it didn't really. um, I never really, I never really saw another option. And even when I was in high school, I remember a couple times people being like, "How are you so good at everything?" And that would like make a pit in my stomach. Like I hated hearing that, because I was like, I was almost frustrated at the world for not getting the point. That I was like, I don't want you to say I'm good at everything. I want you to look at me and see a good person. And I couldn't even communicate that because I didn't realize, but it just like it struck me the wrong way. I was like, that's not the point here. I'm doing all of that and trying to be good at everything just to be good enough. um, which is, it's a shame. And I also, I had
So
people,
fascinating.
sorry.
I interrupted you. I thought I had a moment there, but um, it's so fascinating to me what you're saying, because um, the recognition of what you did, had you felt seen and valued as a person, would have actually been really valuable feedback. That it sounds like from what you said before, you appreciate when people recognize you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and appreciate the things you do and did, and how good you are at it, right? And yet you couldn't even receive that. You couldn't even take that in, because since it was only about your productivity, and your productivity didn't feel like who you really were, that isn't who you really are, it actually just reinforced the fact that the world doesn't care about you, and that the world only wants your productivity and perfection. So it's what's so fascinating about that is that the praise that people thought they were giving you as kindness and love and support and validation actually was having the exact opposite effect and landing on you, where you were
Yeah.
actually feeling rejected, invisible, unloved, unseen. Like the very good words were actually negative, which is a fascinating thing for us all nurtured heart people out there to reflect on when giving recognitions to our kids, that they're rejection of our recognition or their sense of resistance to it, what is that? Leaning into that energetically and asking ourselves, are we seeing them? Because what I'm hearing that's so fascinating and important, I feel like this is a huge epiphany, is that when a recognition does not see the person that you're recognizing, not only does it not serve the purpose of building inner wealth, but it actually serves the purpose of reinforcing the belief that they aren't important to the world. Like, ouch.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really powerful. So I want to ask you, Esty, as a teaser for our audience, because we're going to have to do a part 2 here, because this has actually been amazing. But I want to wrap up. So this can be in respect for our audience's attention span. So would you say that you still feel on a day-to-day basis the stress and pressure of being perfect, and that when people recognize you or give you the compliment about the haircut or the event planning that you did, or by the way, Esty is like the woman of all talents. She's a music producer and an event planner and a haircut person, and puts out these amazing, I can't even say it, charcuterie boards. I don't even know what anyway, she's incredible. But when I say that, right, do you still resist? Or I see you smiling right now. Are you able to take it in? Like, has there been a transformation? And this is just the teaser, really, because we're going to have to discuss this more in part 2.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's very nice. I definitely, there's a transformation, because when I came to the point where I realized that who I am is enough, and I am appreciated and appreciate myself for just who I am without all the other things that I enjoy doing, then the fact that I do like, doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I enjoy like doing it well, is just like a cherry on top. Like, it's great. I have so much I want to offer to the world. And when people see that and recognize that, it's like, great, thanks. It's not a threat. So definitely big change.
Yeah. So when the inner wealth is there, yeah. So when the inner wealth is there, then any level of praise, recognition, whatever you want to call it, just enhances the inner worth, the inner wealth that's already there, the self-worth that's already there, and supports it instead of creating even more resistance. So if you want to hear more about Esty's transformation, you will have to come back next time. Esty, thank you so much for sharing your connection and experience with Nurtured Heart Approach. I know that this is very valuable to our listeners. Until next time, see you.